He said, sit down. I said, yeah. I said, oh, what's up? And he said, we found an abnormality in your intestine. I said, right, what is it? He said, well, I'm worried it's cancer.
Julie Walters at 75, a national treasure, a cinematic icon, and the woman whose warm presence lit up everything from Harry Potter to Mamma Mia. But behind the laughter and the applause, the truth she hid for years is finally coming out. And it's more shocking, more emotional, and far more personal than anyone expected. Why did she disappear from the spotlight? What terrifying secret did she hide even from her own daughter? And how did a life-threatening diagnosis transform everything she thought she knew about fame, success, and survival? Today, we uncover the truth, backed by interviews, private accounts, and her own heartbreaking revelations. The day everything fell apart. It began so quietly that Julie Walters almost dismissed it as nothing. A bit of indigestion here, a small ache there. The kind of symptoms most people would ignore after a long week of work. She was used to hard schedules, early mornings, and the pressure of new roles. Feeling tired or uncomfortable was simply part of the job. But as the months passed, something kept nudging at her, a quiet alarm she tried to silence. The discomfort grew into stomach pain, then heartburn, then sudden moments of sickness she could no longer explain. Still, she pushed on, believing it would pass, believing she had no time to stop. Everything changed while she was filming The Secret Garden in 2010. She was on set, in full costume, surrounded by lights and crew, when her phone rang. It was her specialist calling after a recent scan. Julie stepped aside, expecting a quick update. Instead, she heard the words that froze her in place. The scan had found an abnormality. There were masses in her large intestine. There were 2 of them. The specialist feared the worst. She needed to come in at once. When the full diagnosis was confirmed, stage 3, advanced, serious, Julie could hardly believe it. She told the BBC later that I was still thinking, that's ridiculous, he must have made a mistake. I couldn't believe it. For a moment, the world around her seemed unreal, as if she had stepped outside her own life and was watching the scene happen to someone else. But even as the diagnosis shattered her world, Julie's next decision would shock everyone around her and reveal a side of her no one had ever seen. A silence. She refused to break.
Bond for some time. I felt hugely anxious, first of all, massive anxiety about it.
Julie Walters has always been known for her warmth and honesty, but when faced with the most frightening moment of her life, her instinct was not to share the truth. It was to protect. She built a wall around her fear, not out of denial, but out of love. She could not bear the thought of her family worrying every hour of the day. She did not want them sitting in silence, imagining the worst. So she kept the truth close to her chest, holding it quietly while the weight of it pressed harder and harder on her. The hardest part of all was speaking to her daughter, Maisie. Julie could not bring herself to say the word that had turned her life upside down. So she said something else, something small, something easy. She told her daughter she needed to have her appendix removed. It was a simple explanation, one that did not show the fear that had settled in her stomach. Maisie sensed something was not quite right, but she didn't push. She trusted her mother, even when the silence felt heavy. Julie later admitted she simply could not make the words come out. Saying them aloud would make everything too real. Only a tiny circle knew the truth: Julie, her husband, and a few medical professionals. For everyone else, a different story was put forward. When she missed the premiere of Mamma Mia 2, her team told the public she had suffered a ruptured hernia. It was a believable explanation, and it kept the questions away. For 18 months, the world had no idea what she was fighting. She carried the secret through surgery, through treatment, through long days where fear and exhaustion tried to pull her down. Yet while she hid her fear from the world, the real battle was only beginning, and it would test her strength in a way no role ever had. Surgery, chemo, and the strange comfort of normal life. When the day of the operation arrived, Julie Walters carried a fear she had tried to keep hidden from everyone around her. Doctors needed to remove nearly 30 centimeters of her colon, cutting out both tumors before they spread any further. It was a major, delicate surgery the kind that forces a person to confront thoughts they never wanted to face. As she was brought into the operating room, Julie found herself thinking about the simplest things: her home, her husband, her daughter, wondering if she would see them again. It was a quiet fear she kept to herself. And then suddenly, she woke up. The bright lights above her came into focus, and she felt an unexpected wave of relief wash over her. She later described feeling absolutely marvelous, a strange lightness likely caused by the anesthesia still in her system. For a moment, it felt like the world had paused just long enough for her to breathe again. That night, unable to sleep, she found herself asking the nurse if Love Island was on. The two of them watched the reality show together in the quiet hospital room. It was small, ordinary, and oddly comforting. In the middle of a life or death fight, that bit of normal life felt like a lifeline, something simple to hold on to when everything else felt too large to face. But the days that followed were far from easy. The euphoria faded quickly, replaced by exhaustion and a heavy emotional fog. Julie began a course of tablet-form chemotherapy. She was grateful her hair stayed intact, but the treatment was still draining, leaving her tired and low on energy. Her work was also affected. Scenes in the secret garden had to be changed, and a body double stepped in for moments she physically could not manage. But survival came with a cost, and in Julie's case, it led to a discovery about her own life that would change everything she believed. The gift that changed her forever.
And how are you now?
I'm really well. As far as I know, touching wood, I've just had a scan on Monday, and I know that that's clear.
When Julie Walters finally began to recover, something unexpected happened. She felt different, so different, in fact, that she said she no longer recognized the woman she had been before surgery. It wasn't just the physical battle or the long months of fear. It was the sudden stillness that followed. For the first time in decades, the world around her slowed down, and she was forced to stop moving, stop rushing, stop performing. And in that quiet space, she found something she hadn't expected: relief. Julie later admitted that the diagnosis, as terrifying as it had been, also felt like a kind of release. Before she fell ill, she was booked for 2 big series and 2 films, all lined up back to back. She had been living on a treadmill for years, constantly shifting between roles, early calls, and long nights. The pressure never seemed to end. She described her life as a merry-go-round, fast, bright, and relentless. And she could never step off, not without a reason everyone would understand. But suddenly, she had one. Cancer stopped everything. It forced her to rest, to breathe, to think. It also pushed her to confront a truth she had quietly carried for years. When her doctor asked what she believed had caused her illness, the first thing that came to her mind was her work, the stress, the deep emotional immersion, the self-judgment, the nights without sleep. She realized the intense demands of her craft were taking a toll she could no longer ignore. But stepping away brought its own heartbreak, and Julie soon discovered that even when she tried to return, her body had its own plans. A return that didn't last. After stepping back from the industry, Julie Walters believed her acting days were behind her. She felt grateful simply to be alive, and the quiet rhythm of her new life brought her a peace she had never known during her busiest years. Still, something inside her wondered if she would ever feel the pull of a truly special story again. For a long time, nothing moved her enough to change her mind, until the script for True Love arrived. It was the kind of project that reached her in a way nothing else had since her recovery. The writing was raw, real, and deeply human. When she read it, she felt that familiar spark, a reminder of why she had fallen in love with acting in the first place. She agreed to come back, not for fame or expectation, but because the story touched something honest in her. For the first time in years, she prepared to step in front of the camera with genuine excitement. Filming began with a sense of hope. Julie felt steady, focused, and ready to give herself to the role, but that feeling didn't last. Not long into production, she started experiencing severe back pain, pain sharp enough to stop scenes, halt movement, and send her seeking medical help. At first, she tried to push through, thinking it might pass, but it only grew worse. Each day on set became a reminder of how fragile her recovery truly was. Outro. Julie Walters has given the world so many unforgettable moments. but her greatest story may be the one she lived behind closed doors. Now, we want to hear from you. What is your favorite Julie Walters role? Share your thoughts below, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Watch the next video on the screen for more stories about the stars you love and the truths they never expected to reveal.